Okay, Zach. So I think this is one of the biggest questions that I've been being asked over and over again right now in the market. Do we buy now or do we wait until the rates drop? And this is a game that I think we've been playing for several years. And the unfortunate part about it is that, like, you just can't perfectly time the market. And like waiting for what? Like there's so many variables in everything. And right now I have two examples exactly right this exact same time. I have a buyer. We were so excited. They found the house. We got it under contract. Like we were able to negotiate. It was amazing, beautiful, and we were all ready to go. And then the son came into the picture and was like, "Oh, I think you guys are making a big mistake. I think you guys should hold off. Like, why are you doing this right now? Like, things are going to change and prices will drop and rates will drop, so you just need to wait." So we cancel contract. And it's horrible and it's humiliating, and I'm sad for my clients, but they listen to their child. Then with my sellers, we had a buyer, and the buyer's parents, like their first time buyers, are so excited. They love this home. This home is like turnkey. It is perfect in West Jordan. It's like the cutest little thing in Utah. And all of a sudden the parents are like, "You guys, like you just need to wait and time the market because prices are going to crash and rates are going to come down and you're going to be so sorry and you'll have made a bad decision." So let's educate people. Let's help people understand what it looks like in today's market. Let's give them some
I love what you're saying though, Janet, right? I love how or people sometimes will play, well, look, rates are going to come down, but the housing market's going to crash at the same time, which it's like the inverse of each other in some ways, right? If rates are coming down, there's going to be so many more buyers come into the market, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a lot to kind of digest there from an economic standpoint, also just from like a cause and reaction standpoint. But
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I mean, as far as people sometimes there's that fear of like making the wrong decision and not timing the market perfectly, which I think we've all dealt with that in some regard, whether it's on a house purchase, a car purchase, anytime you're, spending a decent amount of money, there's always that fear. And when we look at it, like I've got a client right now where he was gonna purchase back in like April, May of 2020, right when COVID was kind of beginning. He was looking in the Lehigh Traverse area, and he was looking at houses that were anywhere from like 500 to 600,000 at the time. Really nice houses, 4,000 square feet. They had views of both valleys, both Salt Lake County and Utah County you could see. And he ended up deciding, well, it's probably just not the right time. There's just too much chaos right now. I'm gonna hold. And so he's held off for the last 4 or 5 years. And he's now coming back into the market saying, okay, I think I'm finally ready to, make this purchase. The house hasn't been functioning as well as we wish it did over the last 4 or 5 years. Let's finally do this. And now we're really looking at a price range of anywhere from like 750 to 850 for a very similar home that he was looking at before. And so it's so hard to time the market, right? As far as knowing whether values are going to go up or down. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure that it fits your lifestyle and what's going on in your life, right? If you have more kids than bedrooms, it might make sense to upgrade and get more room for the family or get a yard and just different things like that. And so that's where I think timing the market, a lot of people miss the boat on it.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, if we had a crystal ball, we would be billionaires, right? I mean, if we could just tell people this is the day, this is the time, if only we knew. And when rates drop, here's the crazy thing, because like, so let's say everybody's listened to whoever's telling them prices are not going to drop. That I can tell you, unless there's some crazy thing that's unpredictable. All of the stats, everything in real estate in Utah is showing green light for prices to go up. And what happens when the rates drops is we saw it in February. The rate got below 6%. And all of a sudden, if the house was in perfect condition, it was in the right location. Let's say it was in Lehigh or Bountiful, or maybe it was in Ogden in a certain neighborhood. Then all of a sudden, those houses were multiple offers. And guess what multiple offers mean? Multiple offers means no, you can't sleep on it. No, we can't wait and see on Saturday. It's Tuesday. Like everything's become so much pressure, and all of your choices and your flexibility as a buyer goes out the window. Some might say, "Oh, that's great for sellers," but it's actually like chaotic, and it's, I mean, that is what pushes prices up. So then home prices are going to start moving up because these buyers who've been waiting until the rates go down, which there's like 25% of the market, think about them all coming back at the same time. And we saw a little tiny mirror of it in February. And already multiple offers. When I say multiple offers, I'm not talking 27, 37 like during the hot craze of COVID, but we're talking like three or four, just enough that you can't ask for closing costs anymore. You can't ask for a price reduction. You can't get the help and the flexibility. You can't negotiate on inspections. So there's a lot of things that happen when the rates drop, which so sure, you'll get a better payment, but I mean, at what price?
And that payment comes at a cost, right? Because when I look at it, like let's just throw out the example of someone's buying a house and they get ten or $15,000 of seller paid closing costs that go towards just covering everything. So all they're doing is bringing their down payment in. Well, I mean, under a specific, like if we look at buying a $500,000 house, doing a regular conventional loan, if the rate moves about 1%, that monthly payment only fluctuates by about $300. So to make up for that ten to $15,000, like that's gonna take a really long time. It might take 5 years to recoup not getting that $15,000, but you saved that $300 per month on payment. And so I'd rather have a $300 higher payment than have to come up with 15,000 cash. That's my take on it. Another thing we're seeing right now, though, too, is like you said, February was a hot month. I'd say right now, the majority of the stuff I'm seeing, we are getting seller paid closing costs on. Sometimes we are in multiple offer situations, but I'd say there's fewer now than there were, February, March-ish, which is kind of good. And then the first thing to go once the market does heat up is closing costs, right? Man, if you're a seller, you're hoping to get 3 to 4 offers because then they can kind of outbid each other and make it better for you. And so, it's the conundrum, right? If you're the seller, that's what you want. If you're the buyer, you're like, hey, I want to be just the only person in here so that it's like, hey, take it or leave it. And you can kind of have that upper hand on the negotiation.
Well, and
Um,
I was
yeah,
going
go
to
ahead.
say the other thing is that a lot of times the sellers are buyers. Like there's a lot of that right now. There's a lot of people who are really, really disappointed in the craze and heat of the moment. They made a commitment. They paid 50,000 cash over. They didn't do an inspection. And now all of a sudden they've had to replace a roof and the floor plan really doesn't function for their family, or it put them further away from their family than they wanted to be, or now they have to go back to work and they can't live where they live without having too much of a drive. So there's a lot of people that want to sell. A lot of those, it's like 87% of people who bought during that time. It's a huge high amount. Did it They settled because it was like, gosh, we've been trying to get a house, like this one will do. And so, you've got to keep track of that too.
Right. Well, and one way to kind of mitigate this, when I look at it too, like we have our cute little buyers up in Ogden right now, right? They were able to get a 3-2-1 buy down. And so that first year, their rate's in the threes. Second year, their rate's in the fours. Third year, their rate's in the fives. And then years 4 through 30, their rate's going to be in the sixes. But likely there's going to be a window during that next 3 years, we would imagine, where they're going to have an opportunity to refinance and get something that's. But we're kind of just biding our time on that specifically, where we can just get out of this specific interest rate market and get into the next portion. The exciting part is too, is I think we have a lot of tailwinds for us going into the latter part of this year. We've got Kevin Warsh, who's going to be taking over as the Fed chairman, and Powell's going to be replaced. Today was Powell's last Fed meeting, and so this is
Um,
exciting. We are not sad to see him go by any means, I would say. So we'll wish him good best of luck and be excited to see what Kevin Warsh can do in that position and things. So it'll be good. As far as like the buy it now versus and just lock in the purchase price, um, I mean, we're seeing those prices be negotiable, especially if it's not as turnkey, right? If the house does need a bit of fixing, I am seeing people offering below asking price and also getting closing costs. A lot just depends on the area and just the condition of the home as far as whether we're seeing that. And then refinancing to lower that payment. If rates come down, refinancing really isn't that expensive. We do a lot of refis that the bank pays for the closing costs even. And so anytime somebody can drop their interest rate by 0.5% to 0.75% and have the bank pay for the closing costs. We've been doing a lot of those, getting the people from the sevens into the sixes and not charging them, and that's a good way to well. So
Very nice.
lots of options when it comes to refinancing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think that people need to, when they're listening to these conversations, they need to weigh the bigger risk, because what happens is like Bountiful, Farmington, Sugar House, Lehigh, Harriman, Draper, some of these really hot spots, some of these really popular cities, when rates go down, they are going to be the first to shoot up in prices. And when that happens, these buyers who've been waiting, like your example of that guy, like all of a sudden what they coulda, woulda, shoulda afforded is now like so much further out of reach and is such more of a sacrifice. That's how it comes into play. And these clients who can sleep on it, these clients who can ask for some help on closing costs or a reduction in price, and also being able to negotiate repairs. I've really, really appreciated the fact that we can do not only, I mean, because I always did inspections with my clients. Even if we couldn't negotiate anything in the hottest markets, I was like, we need to know what we're paying for. So they had that for their information. But now you can take that information. I just had to negotiate a roof, a full roof for my client. Back in the day, like if that would have come up, our choice would have been cancel and lose your non-negotiable, non-refundable earnest money, or suck it up and change your roof yourself. But we were able to say, hey, and we had enough time, like we could get bids from three different roofers, compare, communicate with the sellers. Like relationships are so much easier when you have a little space and time to think and to go through that. So unfortunately, the biggest risk is as those rates come down, if you're going to wait for that, you're going to end up in a hot, heavy, hairy mess where prices are going up and you lose your purchasing power, and you can't secure the house that you love. Like it's not guaranteed. You have to start fighting for it. So that makes it really difficult.
And then as far as reasons why you'd want to wait would be if you're still saving up down payment. That could be one reason where you're like, okay, we've got to, have our emergency fund, got to have the down payment. If that's the case, just keep on doing that. Keep on saving as much as you can each month. Another reason would be if credit isn't in a good spot, right? We've got our specific client right now, Janet, where it makes the most sense for them to sell their house, move into a short-term rental or with family for 30 to 60 days, get everything paid off as best they can, and then, pull scores after, there's been consolidations of debt and different things like that and get all the debts paid off. Um, or if you think your job situation could potentially change. If you think, hey, there's a good chance we're going to get transferred, 12 to 24 months from now to a different state, I would just say go rent if you don't think you're going to be here for longer than 2 years. Likely you'll come out ahead, on just paying rent. And then, if you're not sure where you want to live, if you're thinking, hey, we want to be in Ogden, or, we're still debating whether we want to be in Salt Lake County, Utah County, then that would be another reason just to say, hey, sit tight, even if it's renting for another 3 to 6 months, decide where you really want to live and then zone in on that and, purchase the right house.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the thing is that there's a lot of anxiety around the housing market. And that's why you and I dedicate so much time to our job. I feel like half of my time is spent, like, I need to really understand and listen to my clients, hear their needs. I mean, that client that you were talking about, there's some high anxiety there. When you have a life event, and both spouses had major medical emergencies that just changed the way that they could financially care for their family. So you don't want to move, but you have to move. But then you realize that then you're going to have to do an in between. Like it takes some understanding, some preparation, someone who really, really understands the market, who cares about your needs and your timing, that's going to tell you the truth and that's going to give you the proper steps to get you where you want to go. So I think that if you're trying to figure out, should I wait, shouldn't I wait, try this. Like, don't try to time the market. Time your life. Like, decide, is this a good life decision for me? Is now the time? And if so, let's get together. Zach and I are going to make sure that you understand your numbers, that you understand time frames. We both have presentations to answer all your questions to get you where you want to go. So Zach, I appreciate the Asbel team and thank you so much for being with me today and helping me get people on the right track.
Love it. Thanks, Janet.